delighted to be here to talk a little bit about my research on how gender affects loan repayment. So when we think about women and investing, we tend to think about ourselves as the investors who are putting money, say, into the stock market. But financial institutions as well, when they make loans to borrowers, are also making investments that they're hoping to get a good return on. And as it turns out, gender plays a really important role in loan repayment. So my co-author, Sarah Tabo from the University of Santa Barbara, she and I found this out firsthand in our research on the relationship between gender and loan repayment. And we were particularly interested in looking at how borrowers viewed the job associated with approving and overseeing loans. So this was like a loan manager, loan officer position. So we often think about certain jobs as being associated with certain genders. You can think about, we associate a firefighter often as a masculine job, or a nurse as more of a feminine job. And what we did in this paper was to go to a somewhat unusual setting, a commercial microfinance bank in Latin America, which was really useful for our purposes, because in this setting, the job of the loan manager wasn't really strongly associated with one gender or another, and it was populated about 50-50 by men and women. So with this in mind, we looked at what happened when clients were initially assigned to a male or a female loan manager, and then were switched at random to another loan manager. And there were two key findings. So the first was that clients missed significantly more payments when they associated the job itself with women. And this was the case whether the person filling the job was a woman or a man. When clients associated the job with men, they were much more compliant. They missed fewer payments. And so this is consistent with a lot of research that shows that when women in positions of authority give directives, people are sometimes less compliant with those directives. But in this case, it was particularly surprising because it's actually in clients' best interest to repay their loans on time. The second thing that we found that was really interesting was that borrowers weren't always more compliant with male managers. In fact, we saw that when borrowers had a male manager but viewed the job itself as feminine, they missed far more payments when they had an individual male manager but viewed the job as feminine. So what does all this have to say to us about women and investing? So I think the first thing is that jobs are associated with genders, just as gender is a characteristic of individuals. And when we start to attach genders to jobs, it can have negative consequences, not just for women, but for men as well. So it encourages us to think in financial markets about gender bias as a problem, not just a women's problem, but a problem that affects men as well. And the second thing that I think this study teaches us is that gender influences financial behaviors in the marketplace. Financial markets are a very gendered space, but there are also places in the market where people behave in very gender neutral ways. For instance, in our study, we found that microfinance borrowers, both men and women, were just as biased against their female managers. So it wasn't the case that female borrowers were less biased against their female managers. So I think it encourages us to think about financial markets as landscapes where sometimes behavior is highly gendered, and in other spaces, it's actually quite gender neutral. So I will leave it there.